Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this episode of The Satellite View. I'm Todd Mickelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, September 14th, 2025, in the space and time continuum. I'm in Minnesota, and it is 90 degrees. So, I like it, but I don't know. People were gearing up for the fall, but it's summer. Feels like summer. Okay, now, I am going to point out some things that you may not have heard, like I always do. But really the main reason I want to speak to you today is to let you know that what's going on in the news is different than what's going on in reality in many ways. Now, this last week was really intense news-wise. The last few weeks have been. Trump was completely gone for 7 days. Not a word about it. Nobody seems to have really batted an eye. People were speculating whether or not the President of the United States was dead, and nobody's even talking about it. Jake Tapper's not writing any book about Donald Trump. So things are way beyond any kind of protocols this country or world used to have. Now, of course, everybody's been talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. What you know deep inside about it is probably more correct than what's going to be reported. Normally, we would be hearing more about the quote-unquote shooter. There are videos of some guys that were within 5 feet of Charlie Kirk who made weird hand gestures, very obvious, kind of like what they do in baseball. You know, like the first base coach or they do all these things with their hats and their arms and tapping on their elbows. And two guys did two different gestures like that within seconds before the single shot directly to Charlie Kirk's jugular vein occurred. The shot was set up perfectly. If it was a random 22-year-old kid, do you know how hard it is to gain access to the roof of a building? And choose the right building. He had an absolute clear shot with no obstruction between him and Charlie Kirk. He was up high enough and far enough away. And then these two guys do this gesture, and then one single shot. And I hear two different guests on MSNBC saying that, oh, that's an easy shot. That's not a hard shot. From 200 yards away, a single shot. One of those guests said, and this is before the shooter was arrested, but the photos of supposedly of him were released, which were very random, by the way. And this guy said, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, boy or a girl. When you start making assumptions, you start losing your focus on catching the person. And then within 60 seconds, he says, but this was not a difficult shot. This person was not trained. This person definitely, he said, was not trained to shoot. Making an assumption that he just said is always a mistake. So these are some things that I noticed. You may have noticed a lot of weird things as well. Now, are those things frustrating? Yes. And I'm not saying that everything I'm insinuating here is what I really think happened, because I don't know what happened. It very well may be the story that they're telling. But I also notice the story that they're telling has changed at least 3 times. Talking about some sort of engraving on the ammunition. What? Engraving on the ammunition. Okay, they said it was a transgender shooter. Then they said it was a far-left lunatic. Now that it's come out that this guy's basically a Trump guy, deep far right wing, they're saying that he shot Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk's not right wing enough, not hateful enough, not Nazi enough. When Charlie Kirk has said some of the most horrible things any human walking earth has, including, it's sad, but we have to put up with people dying of gun violence in order to protect the Second Amendment. Well, it sounds like you got what you wanted. Now, this is frustrating, and it feels like we need to be told the truth. We need to know exactly what happened. That's likely not going to happen. I want to tell you a couple stories about my experiences throughout my life. So 35 years ago and more, between 35 and 40 years ago, I started to get quite obsessed with the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I thought he would have changed the world in a positive way had he not been shot. You know, that's all speculation. There were a lot of things he was working on, including ending the Vietnam War. Who knows how many lives he may have saved if he could have done that. Now, the least believable story about the actual assassination of John F. Kennedy, the least believable story of that is the one that is currently in history books. I came across many different theoried stories, all of which made a lot more sense than that particular one. But I don't know how many books I read. I still have on VHS tape, I haven't watched them in years, but I have something like 35 hours worth of documentary footage and all kinds of different things about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I was obsessed with it for years until one day when I decided, you know what? I know that the story that's told in history books is not the truth. But I also know we're never going to find out the truth, especially at this point. We can theorize. I have some ideas about what I think happened, but I don't know. And we will never know. And that's the same with a lot of these news stories that are going on now, including the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's best to just let go of it. Part of the reason for them purposefully doing this, if they purposefully did it, is to distract you from the things you should be working toward. Of course, it's a distraction from the Epstein files, but it didn't work. So I would say Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't go out in open air events anytime soon. It's not funny, but, she said she would name the victims list that they were going to make. So now it's been 2 weeks, a week and a half, since the victims said, I should call them the survivors, at their press conference on September 3rd, they said they're going to make their own list of, the guys that they know raped them. They can tell firsthand who raped them. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene took the microphone and said, these poor women are afraid to name names because they could be sued into poverty. I'm a member of Congress. I can go on the House floor and name all these names and be immune from any kind of suing or litigation. Later on, Thomas Massey said the same thing. Now, it's been a week and a half. It seems like somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who seems very impulsive, would have done this by now. Did she get a call maybe like, hey, you saw what happened to Charlie yesterday, right? You still going to go on the House floor and read those names? This is how I think the scariness works. This is how I think the darkness works. This is how I think the mob works. This is how I think the Putin regime works, and this is how I think the Trump regime works. Part of it is from all the information I found out when I looked into the JFK assassination. A lot of things about the mob, a lot of things about the CIA, a lot of things about how they make things happen. And I should say this is for entertainment purposes only. We're just talking here. But we're never going to know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. We need to keep our eyes on the prize, so to speak. We need to keep concentrating on the things that matter. I personally never cared about Charlie Kirk. I think it's horrible that he met with such a violent demise. I think that's horrific. I don't think that should happen to anybody. But for people to try and make Charlie Kirk into a martyr, including on MSNBC and NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, to try and say, oh, he was just really a nice guy, that's BS to me. You do not need to do that. We still live in the reality where we can all see he fomented hate as much as he possibly could. So don't feel bad if you don't feel bad. It all is what it is. And as a matter of fact, part of what they're trying to do is make left-wing people say things about Charlie Kirk that are bad, because then they can say, see, the left-wing hates everybody. I sincerely have come to a place in my life where I am losing all of my hate. I sincerely don't feel like I hate or hated Charlie Kirk. I think it's horrible what he did, what he said. You've heard me, call people not human beings and things like that. That's kind of my way of avoiding saying that I hate something or somebody. It's very hard. It's very difficult. Because, yeah, that's the first thing that bubbles up. But that's what we need to change. I'm working on it within myself. And yes, it's difficult. I say to you now that I feel like I did not hate Charlie Kirk. But, I felt like I did. I'm just trying to maybe manifest myself losing the feeling of hate. When you stay in a feeling of hate or anger towards somebody, you're staying down in that bad energy. Forgiving somebody is freedom. There was somebody very important in my life that I had a lot of troubles getting through. And then I finally came to a place, and it was after this person was dead for 10 years, where I decided, you know what? I think I've completely forgiven that person. And I feel so much better. Justice or no justice? What is justice exactly? Is justice me being held in a dark place because I can't get over being pissed at somebody? Feeling like I hate somebody? Part of this, staged or not, I mean, it was a successful assassination. Charlie Kirk was actually killed. But still, even if it was a set-up thing, a pre-planned thing, and not just the shooter deciding he's going to shoot Charlie Kirk, then that's trying to keep people in that dark place. And we need to refuse. We need to refuse to stay there. And in your life, with anybody you know that you've had trouble getting along with, or that you've had a long run-in with, or that you still have some sort of big problem going on, ask yourself what it would be like if you did not think about that. And how do you feel in your life when you are doing something where that is completely gone from your mind? This is why we say things like, do the things you love to do. Get in that higher energy place. Play your guitar, play your piano, play your trombone, or whatever. Play your records, play your CDs, play your video games, your sports games. Because when you're doing those things, you're not thinking about the things that pull you down into the darkness. We need to be doing things that make us forget that this whole thing happened and let ourselves be ourselves, because we are still us here on planet Earth, alive, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be enjoying that as much as absolutely possible. I'm going to take a short break. You're listening to A Satellite View. We'll be right back. Back on A Satellite View. If you like the music you hear here, go to toddmickelson.com and push the music link. You can find this and other music I've recorded throughout the years. Go to our website, thesatelliteviewpodcast.com, and sign up to be on our mailer. And also find us on YouTube. Search for Satellite View Podcast. You can find our channel. Subscribe. It's free. Try to get the word spread, more people to hear and maybe see the show. And thank you so much for being here. I've been getting feedback from people, and it's very nice. It's a nice community that we're forming here. I am very grateful for you being here with me, and I hope I can help you get through some of this stuff. We all need to stick together. Now, there have been a lot of things that happened. We've talked mostly about what everybody else has been talking about, but I really feel strongly that we should not be immersed in how the mainstream corporate media is treating things like the Charlie Kirk incident and other Trumpian things. There are things going on by Ukraine. What you're hearing about in the news is that Russia is escalating everything. Some people are using the term World War III. Some people use the term with the Charlie Kirk thing, civil war. Okay, neither of these things are about to occur. And in fact, the whole thing with Charlie Kirk has pretty much already fizzled. They got about 48 hours worth of talking about it, and then they moved on to other things. But some of the other things they moved on to is still misleading. If you're seeing pictures of Russia lining up missiles and things like that, Russia is in its final throes from what it sounds like. Now, if you've been listening to this for the last 2 or 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, I've been reporting on the Ukraine and Russia war. Russia's trying to change the story. Again, trying to make us not look at what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia war. Now they're trying to make us look at what's going on in Russia making aggressions toward the rest of Europe, Poland, places like that. Thousands of people in Poland are signing up to be in the armed forces. Germany is ramping up their armed forces. NATO is at level 4 right now, which means they're getting together to strategize about what their next move is going to be. It sounds very scary. And that's exactly what Putin is trying to drum up. Anything he can do to divert attention away from what Ukraine is doing to Russia right now, because what Ukraine is doing to Russia is kicking their ass. RFU News, one of their newest headlines from 2 hours ago, we outflanked their positions. The border has been crossed. Ukrainians push into Kursk. The Russians have left Kursk. That's just one of many headlines coming out daily now. You've heard me talk about Anna from Ukraine. She comes out with a new video, probably an average of at least 3 to 5 times a day, with a new report of an oil refinery or a military factory or something. Ukraine is hitting military assets. Last week I talked about there are 2 towns, and this is how again happened this week. There are 2 towns within Ukraine that Russia had occupied, but Ukraine took back the ground behind it. So now they're isolated in Ukraine, and there are Russian soldiers there not getting supplies from Russia because they're cut off. So their front line is cut off from their own army. They have at least twice now, Russia has tried to rescue them, and Ukraine surrounds them and eviscerates the rescue party. More than 100 people dead each time, and a lot of equipment. The generals, the leadership is all but decimated, if not pretty much decimated, from what I'm getting from these sources that are in Ukraine reporting on this. There's more information you can find on YouTube from what's called the military channel, I think it is. And they have really thorough reports on what's going on. It seems a little confusing because, you're maybe not familiar with the territory, not familiar with the names, but you can still tell when you're watching these things that, wow, the line keeps moving backwards toward Russia and away from where Russia had taken over areas in Ukraine. And Russia's economy is in shambles. So, of course, Putin's going to be like, let's send some drones into Poland. Get people talking about us moving into Poland. Let's scare the crap out of the world before I get killed or die of natural causes, if I haven't already. And then, and another very interesting thing is, Trump wants to talk about Charlie Kirk until we find out that the Charlie Kirk supposed shooter is a Trump fan. Now he doesn't want to talk about Charlie Kirk anymore. So somebody on Fox asks him about, what do you think about Russia sending drones into Poland? And Trump just goes, it was just an accident. They got shot somewhere else and they fell on the ground in Poland. I don't want to talk about that either. But so Trump is all but defending Russia at this point, and he's trying to go into Venezuela. He seized a tuna boat. So he's making big strides in, I don't know what he's trying to do in Venezuela. Trying to see if they shoot at us so that we can say there's a war in Venezuela? Is that what he's doing? Why is Trump focused on Venezuela when the whole rest of the world right now is focused on Russia going into Poland? And the world should be focused on continuing to help Ukraine kick Russia's ass. Russia's not going to be able to go into Poland very soon because Russia's going to crumble, or the Kremlin is going to crumble. Sadly, the Kremlin has crumbled a large part of the country. People are having trouble getting bare essentials to survive. And now the weather's going to start getting cold, if it hasn't already in Russia. So we're heading toward something going on where Trump is not cooperating with NATO, and he's trying to brush off what Russia is doing, which is, is what is triggering NATO to act. What's the United States military going to do if Trump decides to, hey, no, let's not do that to Russia. We need to defend Russia. Or something like that. He's already said, I'll put sanctions on Russia when all the rest of you put sanctions on Russia and stop buying oil from him. Things that Trump likely knows is not going to happen, at least quickly. Trump is refusing to put sanctions on Russia. He keeps saying, I'll tell you in 2 weeks, and 2 weeks keeps going by. And the media just lets it go, and so does everybody else. They do not know why. So that's what that picture is all about, I think. Why does our media report on the aggression of Russia all the time, but they never talk about what Ukraine is doing against Russia? They never talk about all of these 1,500 kilometers. I can't remember how many miles that is right now, but 1,500 kilometers into Russia, Ukraine was able to attack a big major oil refinery. And then it starts on fire, and Russia they can't put the fire out for days because they're in shambles. And our media doesn't report on it. And all this media that I'm getting this from over in Ukraine, they're saying you won't hear this in Western media for some reason. And they're confused as to why as well. But they're reporting it It's easy to find. So I don't know why our media is taking these angles. Places like MSNBC, they know that we can find this real information. I don't understand where their goal is. I don't understand what's going on with the mainstream media. And that's, to me, that's the most concerning thing that's about all of this stuff. Now, here's some stupid things Trump is doing. ICE is completely out of control. They shot a guy as he was driving away from them and killed him. You could tell it's just because they were pissed that he was driving away from them. They shot non-lethal rounds at some woman who needed a walker assistance cane sort of thing. They just came out of their garage in it was somewhere in Illinois and just started shooting these pellets at all these people, wearing their masks and trying to look tough. But they forget that we all have cameras. We all have cameras. Same with the guys giving the signals behind Charlie Kirk. We all have cameras. We've all seen video of you guys doing this. It's not as easy to hide as it was in 1963. Another dumb thing Trump did was sent ICE into a Hyundai. I'm not sure how to say it. It's Hyundai, the car company. There's a big plant in Georgia. Trump says you need to make your cars over here. So South Korea has a whole bunch of South Korean workers who have work visas in the United States working in this huge plant in Georgia. So they then are buying food from the local restaurants. They're buying all of the things they need from grocery stores, all the things they need to be here. Trump sends ICE in and arrests and wants to deport hundreds of them. Oh, I thought you said you wanted South Korea to build their plants here. South Korea builds a plant here, not because of you, by the way. They built that plant years ago. But then you send your goons in to arrest the workers and send them out of the country. It's just idiotic. It's so stupid. It's just absolutely idiotic. The United Nations General Assembly, you know that big cool building in New York? The United Nations building in New York? You remember it from the Batman TV show? You know, the United Nations General Assembly is moving to Geneva because the Trump administration won't give the Palestinian delegation visas to get into the country. So the entire United Nations General Assembly said, fuck you, Trump. We're leaving your country. That building was built for the United Nations, and now it's going to be empty. Just how stupid is this? It came out, also, MSNBC fired Matthew Dowd because Matthew Dowd said something to the effect of, when you speak hate, it foments hate and it brings hate to you. Said that about Charlie Kirk. MSNBC says that's insensitive and inappropriate and fires him. What? Fox News, their guy Howard Kurtz said, oh yeah, that looks like Trump's signature on that birthday card. Fox takes his show away from him. So this is the left-wing corporate media and right-wing corporate media firing people for telling the truth to the people. That's what's going on with corporate media in the United States. It's crazy. In other places, we're seeing that it can be done. Bolsonaro in Brazil, he did the exact same thing Donald Trump did. Tried to take over with a coup. He tried to do the same thing Donald Trump did on January 6, 2021. He just got sentenced to 27 years in prison. How many years should Trump get? France has voted their new prime minister out. Nepal, the people of Nepal overthrew their own government and took it over. The Japanese leader has resigned. Leadership is falling. Oh, the UK ambassador to the United States is ousted because of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And another thing in Jeffrey Epstein, to me, is way worse than the stupid birthday card thing, which is gross enough. It just makes Trump into an idiot petulant, child pervert doofus. But this, I don't know if you've heard about Jeffrey Epstein holding up a big check signed by Donald Trump with this other guy, I can't remember his name, Pomprance or something, another, rich oligarch down in Florida. And they're joking about that Donald Trump bought a quote-unquote fully depreciated woman for $22.5 thousand. They have a check for $22.5 thousand. I don't know. The check's probably not real, but it's one of those big fake checks they do when you win something And what they mean by fully depreciated woman is just somebody who had their 19th birthday or their 18th birthday, maybe, I guess it would be. Fully depreciated means that she's too old because she just turned 18. Trump bought her. And whether or not it's true is beside the point. Just the fact that they joke in such a way. This is the guy who is supposedly the president of the United States right now. Some good news. Bloomberg has 18,000 emails already talking about, revealing a lot of things, including that Epstein told Ghislaine Maxwell to take Trump's name out of some of their information. Another good thing is the Democrats they're finally bringing in Alex Acosta, who is the lawyer who gave Jeffrey Epstein the what they call the sweetheart deal back in 2008. And then he was made to be on Trump's cabinet. And then he eventually resigned because of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. So people are starting to fall because of the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Alex Acosta's coming into Congress. He's going to be under oath. Okay, that could be very explosive. Of course, we're going to be hearing more from the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. The assassination of Charlie Kirk did not take any attention away from the Epstein mess. Trump, every other time you see him, looks like he has already died. On 9/11, he was at a thing. You probably saw a photo and video of him. His right side of his mouth was drooping severely, like I have only seen in people who've had a major stroke. And then he's in a video the next day talking about Charlie Kirk. And there's something weird going on with his hands that definitely looks like AI. Was his face AI too? People are seriously asking these questions. I'm not saying that I think that was AI. But why, when he's out in public, does he sometimes look like he died more than a week earlier, and then he shows up in the Oval Office and he seems to look okay? Not that he's saying anything that makes any sense. And he still sounds like he's having trouble talking. And nobody's written a book about his, cognition or his physical well-being. Everybody is wondering when he's going to die because everyone's expecting him to die like any minute. The President of the United States. And they're hiding it from us. And nobody cares. Mainstream media doesn't seem to care. All right. Here's very interesting news you probably haven't heard. There's something called the 3-Eye Atlas. It was first seen by a ship that NASA sent a long time ago out by Jupiter. So they're thinking, okay, this is a new comet. They're watching it. Then in May, they start to see it more. And it starts to get brighter, and it starts to do things that comets don't do. And there are serious scientists now talking about that it is possibly an alien ship. It's getting serious. It's going to go behind the sun here pretty soon. I think at the end of October. But we're going to get a very close look at it, a closer and closer. It's coming closer and closer, and then it'll go behind the sun, and then it'll be going further and further away if it stays on the same trajectory, that of which a comet normally would. But some of the big scientists are actually, I'm astonished by this. They're actually saying it is possible that this is an intelligent life-ran ship or entity of some sort. People are starting to seriously, and in Congress, they're talking about, these orbs, some of which have been captured, that it's getting serious. I just hope that the government doesn't try and make it into, oh, we need to shoot stuff at them. They're a threat because they're not. So we're living in incredibly interesting times. I'll end it on this really good note. New Mexico, starting November 1st, will be providing universal child health care in their state. And now, like half a dozen other states are talking about, hey, we should do that too. It is happening. Things are turning, and it feels like things are turning for the worst, and things are getting worse because the people who have been in power, they know that they're not going to be in power for very much longer, and they are scared. So they're doing the craziest stuff right now, and it's making everything seem chaotic. Yet New Mexico just passed a measure that they will be starting to provide universal child health care. Things will be turning for the better. I feel 100% sure. That's how I feel. How do you feel? And we need to constantly monitor ourselves. I'm finding less and less reason to even check in on MSNBC to see what the hell they're talking about. I will because I do this show. But if I wasn't doing this show, I would never listen to them again. Even the people that I like that are on there. The guests that they bring on is just BS. You got to go into yourself. What do you think happened? How do you feel? Do you feel that Trump won the election in 2024? Do you think after the campaign he ran and the campaign Kamala ran, do you think it was possible for Donald Trump to win that election, especially by as much as he did? Did you think it was that there was millions less voters when the whole election day, all of the news, yes, the corporate media was talking about how long the lines are, and this is unprecedented. We've never seen turnout like this. And then when the dust settles, they say, oh, millions less voters turned out. What do you think happened? So trust yourself. Don't even trust me. Trust yourself. Go inside yourself. Take a deep breath and pay close attention to it. Let the breath out slowly. And then take another deep breath in. Go for a walk under the trees. Go sit by the water. And go inside yourself and see how you feel. How is the world going for you in your immediate life? And enjoy everything you can. Do the things you want to do. Don't let the darkness, these people who work for the darkness, don't let them take any of that away from you. That's what we need to do. We need to stay strong and show them, you're not affecting us. You're not affecting me. You can't. You don't have the power. Because they don't. They don't have the power to control you. So, stay frosty. I should let you go. I've gone overtime again. But I just want to thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you being here with me. And I hope I'm helping you in some way by giving you some of this information. We need to stick together and help each other out all we can, keep each other sane. I'll do it for you if you do it for me by just showing up and listening and watching this show. Again, thank you so much for being here. We'll speak at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mickelson. Go to toddmickelson.com for links and more information.